Welcome to this CAPM Agile practice session. Agile and adaptive approaches make up a major portion of the CAPM exam, so it's important to become comfortable with scenario-based Agile questions like these. As you go through the video, try not to immediately skip to the answer reveal. Pause the video when needed, think through each scenario carefully, and attempt the question yourself before reviewing the correct answer and explanation. Let's begin. Question 1. Adaptive methodology components. 6 weeks into a continuous delivery model for a retail e-commerce platform, bug fixes are averaging 11 days from identification to deployment. The Kanban board shows most time is spent waiting in the ready for development and ready for QA columns, not being actively worked. There are no WIP limits in place. The team lead wants to reduce cycle time. What should be recommended first? Your options are: A. Hire additional QA staff to clear the testing backlog faster and reduce the overall time items spent waiting. B. Introduce YP limits on the waiting columns to prevent work from piling up and force the team to pull items forward actively. C. Switch from a Kanban continuous flow model to fixed 2-week sprints to impose more scheduling discipline. D. Move all items currently waiting in queues to a separate holding board so the active Kanban board appears less congested. The correct answer is B. Introduce WIP limits on the waiting columns to prevent work from piling up and force the team to pull items forward actively. The best response is to introduce WIP limits on the waiting columns. The Kanban board data shows the delay is in queue time, not active work time. This is a flow efficiency problem, not a capacity problem. WIP limits on waiting columns prevent pileup and create a pull signal that moves items forward only when downstream capacity exists. Hiring more QA staff, switching frameworks, or hiding the queue on a separate board all fail to address the root cause. Exam tip. When a CAPM Kanban question shows that items are spending most of their time waiting rather than being worked, the root cause is a flow problem. WIP limits, not more staff or a different framework, are the correct first response. Question 2. Adaptive methodology components. A healthcare IT team using Kanban to manage a patient record system notices that the in-progress column always holds 12 to 15 items. Team members are constantly switching tasks and resolution times are increasing. The product manager wants to add more staff. What should the team lead recommend first to address the root cause? Your options are: A. Add more team members to the in-progress column so that more items can be worked on simultaneously. B. Move all items from in-progress to a backlog queue and restart the workflow from scratch. C. Switch from Kanban to a sprint-based Scrum approach to enforce stricter capacity commitments. D. Establish or reduce work-in-progress limits on the in-progress column to reduce context switching and improve flow. The correct answer is D. Establish or reduce work-in-progress limits on the in-progress column to reduce context switching and improve flow. The best response is to establish or reduce work-in-progress limits on the in-progress column. WIP limits are a core Kanban principle that prevent workflow overload, reduce context switching, and improve cycle times. The symptoms described are classic signs of a WIP limit problem. Adding staff does not fix a flow constraint. Clearing the board or switching frameworks are disruptive responses that do not address the root cause. Exam tip. When a CAPM Kanban question describes increasing cycle times and too many items in progress simultaneously, WIP limits are the primary tool to address the root cause. Recognize this as a flow problem, not a capacity problem. Question 3. Iteration planning. An energy sector team enters sprint planning for their 3rd iteration. The product owner wants to commit to 7 backlog items totaling 42 story points. but the team velocity is 28 points. 3 of the items depend on an external API not available until next sprint. The product owner insists all 7 must be included to meet an executive milestone. What should the Scrum Master do? Your options are: A. Help the team commit only to items within their velocity capacity and move the dependency-blocked items to the next sprint backlog. B. Accept all 7 items to satisfy the product owner and ask the team to work overtime to deliver the additional scope. C. Cancel sprint planning and escalate the capacity conflict to the project sponsor for a final decision. D. Accept the 7 items and plan to defer testing of the dependency-blocked items until the following sprint. The correct answer is A. Help the team commit only to items within their velocity capacity and move the dependency-blocked items to the next sprint backlog. The best response is to help the team commit only to items within their velocity capacity and move the blocked items to the next sprint. PMI-aligned iteration planning requires commitments to reflect realistic capacity. At 28 points of average velocity, committing to 42 points sets the team up for failure. Items blocked by an external dependency cannot be completed this sprint regardless of effort, making their inclusion pointless and misleading. Exam tip. In CAPM iteration planning questions, watch for 2 warning signs: commitments that exceed team velocity and items with unresolved dependencies. Either condition means those items should not be included in the sprint. Question 4. Adaptive task management. During backlog refinement for an insurance claims portal, the team finds a backlog item covering form entry, document upload, validation rules, automated routing, and audit logging, estimated at over 60 story points. Sprint capacity is 25 points. The product owner wants to keep the item intact to avoid losing context. What should the Scrum Master recommend? Your options are: A. Extend the sprint length for this item only so the full scope can be delivered without breaking it apart. B. Split the item into smaller, independently deliverable user stories that each fit within the sprint capacity. C. Keep the item as a single backlog entry and assign it entirely to the team's most experienced developers. D. Defer the item to the final sprint when accumulated team velocity may be sufficient to handle its full scope. The correct answer is B. Split the item into smaller, independently deliverable user stories that each fit within the sprint capacity. The best response is to split the item into smaller, independently deliverable user stories that fit within sprint capacity. The item as written is an epic, too large for a single sprint. PMI-aligned adaptive practice requires backlog items to be completable within one iteration. Splitting preserves context while enabling incremental delivery. Extending the sprint, assigning it to senior developers, or deferring it all avoid the real issue. The item needs to be decomposed before it can be planned. Exam tip. When a CAPM question describes a backlog item that exceeds sprint capacity, the answer is always to split it into smaller stories, not to extend the sprint, assign it to better developers, or defer it. Question 5. Adaptive methodology components. During the 5th sprint of a government digital services project, the product owner cancels the sprint review because the completed features are not polished enough to show stakeholders. The Scrum Master disagrees, the sprint goal was met, and 2 key agency stakeholders have not provided feedback since the project began. Which response best reflects PMI-aligned Agile practice here? Your options are: A. Postpone the sprint review until a future sprint when the features are fully refined and ready for formal presentation. B. Replace the sprint review with an internal team demo to validate quality before any stakeholder exposure. C. Hold the sprint review as planned, presenting the working increment to stakeholders to collect feedback regardless of polish level. D. Ask the project sponsor to review the features privately and relay stakeholder feedback on the team's behalf. The correct answer is C. Hold the sprint review as planned, presenting the working increment to stakeholders to collect feedback regardless of polish level. The best response is to hold the sprint review as planned. PMI-aligned Scrum practice defines the sprint review as a critical feedback loop between the team and stakeholders at the end of every sprint. Its purpose is to inspect completed work and gather real input, not to present a polished product. Postponing denies the product owner the stakeholder feedback needed to adapt the backlog, and routing feedback through the sponsor creates a communication bottleneck. Exam tip. When a CAPM scenario involves skipping or delaying a sprint review, the correct answer is almost always to hold it as planned. Feedback from real stakeholders, not internal judgments about readiness, drives adaptive development. Question 6. Adaptive task management. A nonprofit is building a volunteer management platform using an adaptive approach. The product backlog has 18 items. 4 are legally required for data privacy compliance. 5 are rated high value by major donors. 3 are technically complex and block other features if deferred. 6 are nice-to-have enhancements. Which prioritization sequence best reflects PMI-aligned adaptive practice? Your options are: A. High donor value items first, since donor satisfaction directly funds the organization and must take precedence over all else. B. Compliance items first, then dependency blocking technical items, then high donor value items, then nice-to-have enhancements. C. Nice-to-have enhancements first to demonstrate visible progress to volunteers and increase early engagement with the platform. D. Technically complex items first to reduce delivery risk regardless of their business value or compliance implications. The correct answer is B. Compliance items first, then dependency blocking technical items, then high donor value items, then nice-to-have enhancements. The best response is to prioritize compliance items first, then dependency blocking technical items, then high donor value items, and finally nice-to-have enhancements. PMI-aligned adaptive prioritization treats legal and regulatory requirements as must-haves that carry the highest organizational risk. Dependency blocking items come next to prevent compounding delivery risk. Donor value items follow as high-priority discretionary work. Placing enhancements or complexity above compliance misaligns effort with the most critical organizational needs. Exam tip. When a CAPM prioritization question includes compliance or regulatory items, treat them as must-haves that come before high-value or nice-to-have items. External legal obligations create non-negotiable risk that overrides internal value rankings. Question 7. Adaptive task management. A logistics company is building a shipment tracking portal using an adaptive approach. During backlog refinement, a developer flags that a user story reads, "The system should be fast and easy to use." The product owner thinks the intent is obvious. The Scrum Master must decide whether to proceed. What is the most appropriate action for the Scrum Master to take? Your options are: A. Accept the story as written because the team understands the intent and can determine the details during development. B. Ask the product owner to rewrite the story with specific, testable acceptance criteria before it is committed to a sprint. C. Split the story into 2 separate stories, one for speed and one for ease of use, without adding acceptance criteria. D. Escalate the story to the project sponsor to get a formal definition of fast and easy before any development begins. The correct answer is B. Ask the product owner to rewrite the story with specific testable acceptance criteria before it is committed to a sprint. The best response is to ask the product owner to rewrite the story with specific testable acceptance criteria. A well-formed user story must be testable. Fast and easy to use has no measurable threshold, making it impossible to verify completion. Accepting the vague story defers ambiguity into development where it costs more to fix. Splitting into two stories without criteria just creates two vague stories, and escalating to the sponsor bypasses the product owner responsibility. Exam tip. When a CAPM question presents a vague or untestable user story, the correct action is always to refine it with specific, measurable acceptance criteria before sprint commitment, not to proceed on assumed understanding. Question 8. Adaptive methodology components. A financial services company has been running 2-week sprints for 4 months. Sprint goals are met, but team members privately report that unclear code review standards keep causing rework. These issues are never raised during sprint reviews, and team frustration is growing. Which Agile ceremony is best suited to surface and resolve this recurring team-level issue? Your options are A. The sprint review, where the team demonstrates completed work and collects stakeholder feedback on the product. B. The daily stand-up, where team members provide brief status updates on what they completed and what is next. C. The sprint retrospective, where the team reflects on process and collaboration improvements in a structured, safe environment. D. Sprint planning, where the team selects backlog items and commits to the scope of the next sprint. The correct answer is C. The sprint retrospective, where the team reflects on process and collaboration improvements in a structured, safe environment. The best response is the sprint retrospective. This ceremony is specifically designed for the team to reflect on how they are working and identify process improvements. Sprint reviews focus on product feedback, stand-ups track daily progress, and sprint planning commits to scope. Only the retrospective creates the structured, safe environment needed to surface recurring team frustrations like unclear code review standards. Exam tip. When a CAPM scenario involves a recurring process issue, team friction, or workflow inefficiency within an Agile team, the sprint retrospective is almost always the correct ceremony to address it. Question 9. Iteration planning. 3 sprints into a manufacturing automation project, the team is completing 34 story points per sprint, and the product owner is pleased. However, the QA lead reports that 40% of completed stories are failing regression tests in later sprints. The Scrum Master suspects stories are being closed before meeting agreed quality standards. What is the most appropriate next step? Your options are A. Increase the sprint length to give the team more time to complete testing within each iteration. B. Remove the regression testing requirement from the definition of done to prevent velocity from being artificially slowed. C. Ask the QA lead to perform all testing after the project release rather than within each sprint cycle. D. Review and reinforce the definition of done with the team to ensure all quality criteria are met before stories are marked complete. The correct answer is D. Review and reinforce the definition of done with the team to ensure all quality criteria are met before stories are marked complete. The best response is to review and reinforce the definition of done. PMI-aligned adaptive practice requires all stories to meet the agreed quality threshold before being marked complete. When teams bypass the DoD, velocity looks strong, but technical debt accumulates silently. Increasing sprint length or removing regression testing treats the symptom, not the cause. Deferring all testing to post-release contradicts the Agile principle of building quality in throughout the project. Exam tip. When a CAPM question describes high velocity paired with recurring quality failures or rework in later sprints, the root cause is almost always an inconsistently applied definition of done. Question 10. Adaptive task management. Midway through a 6-sprint education platform project, the product owner must prioritize 22 backlog items across 3 remaining sprints. 8 items are high value but complex. 9 are low effort but offer limited benefit. 5 are simple technical enablers that unblock 6 of the high value items. The team can handle about 10 items per sprint. Which prioritization sequence best maximizes value delivery within the remaining capacity? Your options are: A. Prioritize the 5 technical enablers first, then the high-value complex items they unblock, then the low-effort items as capacity allows. B. Prioritize the 9 low-effort items first to build momentum and demonstrate early delivery progress to stakeholders. C. Prioritize the 8 high-value complex items first to address the most important work while team energy is highest. D. Distribute items evenly across the 3 sprints, regardless of dependencies or value, to maintain a consistent delivery pace. The correct answer is A. Prioritize the 5 technical enablers first, then the high-value complex items they unblock, then the low-effort items as capacity allows. The best response is to prioritize the 5 technical enablers first, then the high-value items they unblock, then low-effort items as capacity allows. PMI-aligned adaptive prioritization considers both business value and technical dependencies. Delivering enablers first removes blockers that would prevent the most valuable features from ever being completed. Prioritizing low-effort items for momentum optimizes for appearance over value. Starting with complex items before their dependencies are resolved risks incomplete delivery. Exam tip. When a CAPM prioritization question includes items that block other high-value work, sequence the enablers first. Unresolved dependencies will prevent the most valuable items from ever being completed, regardless of how they are ranked by value alone. For more CAPM exam preparation content, practice questions, and project management learning resources, subscribe to Skilltastic Training.